In 1936, a farmhouse in Nebraska stayed cool through a heat wave that killed livestock in the fields, and the family never plugged in a single fan. The house was built to survive. Today, builders strip these features out to save a few $1,000s, and homeowners never know what they lost. Number 14 on this list quietly saved families money every single day. And number 3 has saved thousands of lives during storms that leveled entire towns. Hit that subscribe button because your own house might be missing every one of these. Let us count down. Number 25, transom windows. Look above the interior doors in any house built before 1940, and you will often find a small hinged window called a transom. It looks decorative now. It was not. Before central air, that little window was how a house breathed. You opened it, and hot air trapped near the ceiling escaped from room to room while the door itself stayed shut for privacy. In a boarding house or a narrow city row home, a transom over the front door pulled a breeze straight through the building. Builders installed them because they cost almost nothing and worked around the clock. A carpenter could frame one in an afternoon. Modern builders seal every room into an airtight box and hand you an electric bill instead. The transom asked for nothing. No power, no filter, no repair. It just moved the air silently, the way a house is supposed to. Number 24, functional exterior shutters. Those shutters bolted flat against the brick on new houses are fake. They do not close. They cannot. But the originals were the single most important defense a house had. Real shutters were hinged, sized to cover the whole window, and latched from inside. In summer, you closed them against the afternoon sun, and the room stayed 15 degrees cooler. In a storm, you barred them, and the glass behind was protected from flying debris. In winter, they cut the wind before it ever reached the cold pane. A pair of solid pine shutters cost a homeowner in 1900 maybe $1 and lasted 50 years. They were armor and thermostat in one. Now they are plastic decoration screwed to the wall, and the family inside reaches for the blinds and the air conditioner and never wonders why the old houses stayed comfortable without either. Number 23, awnings. Before every window came tinted and double-paned, families hung canvas awnings over the sunny side of the house. Striped, faded, flapping a little in the breeze, they looked like something off a corner store. But the shade they threw did real work. An awning blocked the sun before it hit the glass, which stopped the heat before it entered the room. Studies done decades later found that exterior shade cuts solar heat gained by up to 3/4. A window with an awning stayed cool. A window without one turned the room into a greenhouse. In the 1950s, a canvas awning cost a few dollars and could be rolled up in winter to let the low sun back in. That was the genius. It adjusted with the seasons. Builders quit installing them when air conditioning got cheap, and now people pay to cool a room the sun is baking through bare glass. Number 22, deep roof eaves. Walk up to an old farmhouse and notice how far the roof hangs out past the walls. That overhang, the eave, was calculated. A deep eave shaded the walls and windows during the high summer sun, but let the lower winter sun slip underneath to warm the house when it was needed. Builders knew the angle of the sun in their region and sized the overhang to match it. 2 feet of roof did the work of a machine that had not been invented yet. It also kept rain off the walls and away from the foundation, which is why those houses are still standing. Modern builders shave the eaves down to almost nothing because it is cheaper to frame and looks sleek. The wall bakes in July, soaks in every storm, and the homeowner never connects the leaking basement to the roof line that was cut too short. Number 21, the sleeping porch. Before air conditioning, the second floor of a house in July was an oven you could not sleep in. So houses were built with a sleeping porch, a screened room off the upstairs bedrooms where the whole family dragged their beds in the hot months. The screens kept the mosquitoes out. The open air let the night breeze move over you. People swore they slept better up there than they ever did indoors, cooled by the same night air that modern houses lock out. Doctors in the early 1900s actually prescribed sleeping porches for people recovering from illness, believing the fresh air healed the lungs. Nearly every middle-class house built between 1900 and 1930 had one. Then window units arrived, and builders turned the sleeping porch into a spare bedroom or tore it off entirely. We traded a free breeze and a good night's sleep for a humming box in the window. Number 20, the screened porch. More than a place to sit, The screened porch was an outdoor room that let a family live in the heat instead of hiding from it. Meals were eaten out there. Beans were snapped, laundry was folded, children napped, and neighbors visited, all in the shade with the air moving and the bugs kept out. It extended the living space of the house without heating or cooling a single extra square foot. On a still summer evening, the porch was the coolest spot on the property because it caught whatever breeze existed while the sun-soaked house held its heat inside. A screened porch cost little to add to a build and gave a family months of comfortable living every year. Builders dropped them for decks with no roof and no screens, and now people stand outside swatting mosquitoes or stay inside running the air conditioning, and the middle ground that used to hold family life just disappeared. Number 19, the whole house fan. This one people actually remember because their grandparents ran it. Mounted in the ceiling of the top floor hallway, the whole house fan pulled air up and out through the attic. You cracked the windows downstairs in the evening, flipped the switch, and the fan sucked the cool night air in through every open window and pushed the hot, stale air out the roof vents. In 20 minutes, the whole house dropped 10 degrees. It used a fraction of the electricity of an air conditioner and cost a few dollars a summer to run. The trick was timing, running it when the outside air turned cooler than the inside. Families who understood their house barely touched the air conditioner all season. Builders stopped installing them once central air became standard because the machine that cost more to run is the machine they would rather sell you. First pattern break. Here is where the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Every feature so far did the same job as an expensive machine and did it for free. Transoms, shutters, awnings, eaves, porches, fans, these were not old-fashioned quirks. They were a complete system for keeping a house livable without a power grid. The people who built these homes had no air conditioning, no cheap electricity, no HVAC contractor on speed dial. So they made the house itself do the work. They pointed it toward the right sun, shaded the right walls, and shaped every part to move air and hold temperature. It was engineering passed down by carpenters who could not afford to get it wrong. Then energy got cheap, and builders realized they could skip all of it and just bolt a machine to the side of the house. The knowledge did not fail. It got abandoned. Number 18, high ceilings. Those tall ceilings in old houses were not about looking grand. They were about survival in the heat. Hot air rises, and a 10 or 12-foot ceiling gave that hot air somewhere to go, pooling up high while the cooler air settled around the people living at floor level. Paired with a transom or a tall window, the heat vented out the top, and the room stayed bearable through the worst of summer. It was passive cooling built into the very shape of the room. Southern houses especially were built tall for exactly this reason, and anyone who has stood in an old plantation-era hallway on a hot day has felt how well it works. Modern builders drop ceilings to 8 feet because it is cheaper to heat, cheaper to cool with a machine, and faster to frame. The room traps its own heat now, and the fix is the same fix it always is. Turn on the air. Number 17, the summer kitchen. In the days of the wood cook stove, cooking a meal turned the whole house into a furnace. So families built a second kitchen, a separate small building set apart from the main house, and moved all the cooking out there from spring through fall. The heat of canning, baking, and boiling stayed outside where it belonged, and the main house stayed cool and clean. Come winter, cooking moved back indoors so that same heat could warm the family. It was a seasonal switch built out of stone and timber, and it made the difference between a comfortable home and a sweltering one in August. A summer kitchen also kept the fire risk away from where everyone slept. When gas and electric ranges arrived and stopped throwing off so much heat, the summer kitchen lost its purpose and fell down or got repurposed. But the logic behind it was sound, and it kept generations of families cool while they put up their food for winter. Number 16, cross ventilation by design. Old houses were laid out so the wind could walk straight through them. Windows and doors were placed directly across from one another, so opening both sides created a current that flushed the hot air out and pulled fresh air in. The dog trot house of the rural South took this to its purest form. 2 cabins joined by an open breezeway down the middle that funneled the breeze and became the coolest place on the whole homestead. The shotgun house did the same thing with its doors lined up front to back. None of it was accidental. Builders studied which way the summer wind came from and turned the house to catch it. Today, a house gets built to fit the lot and the driveway, with windows placed for the view and the resale photos, and the wind hits a wall. The breeze that used to cool a house for nothing now has nowhere to go. Number 15. The milk door. Set into the wall beside the back door of many older houses is a small hinged hatch, big enough for a milk bottle, with a little door on the outside and a little door on the inside. This was the milk door, and it solved a real problem in the days before every home had a reliable refrigerator. The milkman opened the outer door before dawn and set the cold bottles inside the insulated cubby. The family opened the inner door and took the milk without ever unlocking the house or letting a stranger in. The bottles stayed cool in the shaded wall until someone brought them into the icebox. It cost a builder almost nothing to frame in, and it kept the milk safe and the house secure. When home delivery ended and refrigerators got big, the milk door got plastered over. Most people who own these houses never even notice the little hatch, or they think it is a mail slot. Second pattern break. Now watch what these houses assumed about the people inside them. The milk door, the summer kitchen, the cross-ventilated rooms, they were built for families who did the work themselves. These homes were partners in survival, not just shelter. They stored the food, moved the air, and managed the heat, but only if the people living there knew how to work them. You had to open the right window at the right hour, close the shutters before the sun swung around, run the fan when the night cooled off. The house gave you the tools, and you supplied the knowledge. That knowledge got passed from parent to child in 1,000 small daily lessons. When the machines took over, the lessons stopped. Nobody teaches a kid when to open the transom anymore because there is no transom and there is no reason. We got convenience, and we quietly handed away a whole education in how to keep ourselves alive. Number 14. The laundry chute. A small door in the wall of the upstairs hallway or the bedroom, and behind it, a vertical shaft dropping all the way to the basement laundry. That was the laundry chute, and it seems like a small luxury until you remember who used it. For a mother carrying baskets of wet and dry wash up and down stairs all day, and for the elderly who could not manage the stairs safely, the chute meant the dirty clothes went down on their own. No hauling, no falls on a staircase with an armload of sheets. Builders put them in because they were cheap, and everybody wanted one. A chute was a few boards and a hinged door. Then lawyers and building codes started worrying about fire spreading up the shaft, and insurers pushed back, and builders simply stopped including them. Now the laundry goes down the same stairs everyone walks on, and the trips add up, and the falls do too. Number 13, the dumbwaiter. Grander than a laundry chute, but built on the same idea, the dumbwaiter was a small elevator on a pulley that carried things between floors so people did not have to. Firewood came up from the cellar. Meals went from the kitchen to the dining floor. Groceries rose from the basement entrance. In a tall house, especially for an aging couple or a family caring for someone who could not climb stairs, the dumbwaiter meant heavy loads moved without anybody straining a back or risking a fall. It ran on a rope and counterweight. No electricity required, and a handy person could build one into a house for the cost of lumber and a pulley. As houses got shorter and single-story ranches spread across the suburbs, the dumbwaiter looked outdated and got left out. But in a world where more people are aging in place and struggling with stairs, that simple pulley in the wall solved a problem we are still paying contractors to solve today. Number 12, the coal chute and coal room. On the side of many older houses sits a small iron door low to the ground, and behind it, a chute that drops straight into a bin in the basement. The coal man backed his truck up, opened that little door, and poured a winter's worth of coal down the chute without ever setting foot inside the house. Down in the coal room, the family had their entire heating supply stored and paid for, sitting in the basement, waiting for the coldest nights. It meant a household could weather a long freeze without depending on a delivery getting through, because the fuel was already there under their own roof. That stored reserve was survival when the roads iced over, and nothing moved for a week. Furnaces switched to oil and then to gas piped in from a line, and the coal room got cleaned out and the chute bricked up. The house lost its buffer. Now the heat depends entirely on a line that runs to somewhere else, and when that line goes down, there is no bin in the basement to fall back on. Number 11. The pantry, not a cabinet, a room. The old pantry, sometimes called a buttery or a larder, was a small, cool room off the kitchen, often on the north side of the house, away from the sun, lined floor to ceiling with shelves. This was where a family kept the food that fed them through the months when nothing grew. Jars of canned tomatoes and beans, sacks of flour and sugar, crocks of lard, cured meat, and the harvest they had put up all summer. A well-stocked pantry meant a family could eat for weeks without a trip to a store, which mattered enormously when the nearest town was miles away and the roads closed with snow. It was a survival buffer built into the house. Modern kitchens replaced it with a couple of cabinets and a pull-out shelf, betting that the grocery store will always be open and always be stocked. The families who lived through hard winters and lean years never made that bet. Number 10. The spring house. Before refrigeration reached the countryside, families built a small stone house right over a running spring or cold creek. The water ran through a shallow trough on the floor, staying naturally cold year-round, and the family set their milk, butter, cream, and meat down in that flowing water to keep it fresh. The spring house held a steady temperature in the 50s, no matter how hot the day got outside, cooled entirely by the earth and the moving water. Butter kept for a week, milk did not sour, and the whole thing ran on nothing but the spring that was already there. It took real skill to site and build one, positioning it over the water and shading it with trees. When electricity and the refrigerator arrived, the spring house was abandoned, and most have collapsed into the woods. But for 200 years, that little stone building was the reason a rural family could keep food from spoiling in the summer heat. Number 9. The ice house and the ice box. In winter, families cut great blocks of ice from frozen ponds and lakes, hauled them home, and packed them in sawdust inside a small, insulated building called an ice house. Buried in that sawdust, the ice lasted deep into summer, and the family chipped off pieces to fill the ice box in the kitchen. The ice box itself was a wooden cabinet lined with tin and insulation, with a block of ice up top and the cold sinking down over the food below. A pan underneath caught the melt. It kept meat, milk, and butter cold through the hottest months using ice harvested for free in January. A whole industry of icemen grew up delivering those blocks to homes in town. The mechanical refrigerator wiped all of it out in a generation, and the word icebox faded from the language. But the principle, harvest the cold when it is free and store it for when you need it, kept food safe for a century before the wall socket did. Third pattern break. Here is what nobody wants to say out loud about all this cold storage. The spring house, the ice house, the deep cool pantry, the root cellar coming up, these all existed for one reason. A family had to be able to feed itself when the power was off, when the store was closed, when the roads were shut, when there simply was no other way. Food safety was not a company's problem or a machine's problem. It was the family's problem, and the house was built to solve it. That is the thread running through this entire list. The old house assumed that at some point help would not be coming, and it prepared for that day in stone and sawdust and shelving. The modern house assumes help is always one click away. Most of the time, it is. But the houses that kept people alive through the worst winters and the leanest years were built by people who knew that most of the time is not all of the time. Number 8. The cistern. Every drop of rain that fell on an old farmhouse roof was worth catching, so builders ran the gutters down into a cistern, a large underground tank of stone or brick that stored rainwater. That water fed the household through dry spells, drove a hand pump at the kitchen sink, and gave the family a reserve that did not depend on the weather cooperating. Soft rainwater was gentler than well water, better for washing hair and clothes, and in a drought the cistern was the difference between having water and hauling it. A good cistern held thousands of gallons and cost a mason a few weeks of work. Cities and cheap plumbing made people forget the cistern entirely, and most got filled in or forgotten under backyards. Now, As droughts get worse and water bills climb, homeowners are paying for rain barrels and collection systems that do exactly what the cistern already did, only smaller. Number 7. The hand-dug well and pump. Water is the first thing a house needs, and the old homes had it built right in, independent of any utility. A well dug down to the water table, lined with stone, and topped with a hand pump gave the family water no matter what happened anywhere else. No electricity required, no monthly bill, no shut-off notice. When the power went out for a week in an ice storm, the family with the hand pump still had water while everyone on the town system waited. That pump was a lifeline, and it demanded nothing but a few strokes of the handle. Modern homes tie every drop to an electric pump or a municipal line, both of which fail exactly when you need them most. Builders removed the redundancy because it was cheaper and looked outdated. But the family with a working hand pump in the yard has a kind of security that no smart home gadget can buy. Number 6. The wood cook stove. The cast iron cook stove did far more than cook. It was the survival heart of the house. It baked the bread, boiled the water, canned the harvest, heated the room around it, and warmed the irons and the bricks that went into cold beds at night. All from wood a family could cut themselves for free. When the power failed, the wood stove did not. A family could ride out any storm as long as they had a wood pile, cooking hot meals and staying warm, while modern all-electric houses went dark and cold. The stove asked for skill, tending the fire, knowing its hot spots, but it never asked for a grid. Builders and buyers ripped them out for sleek electric and gas ranges that die the instant the power does. The families who kept a wood stove, even just in the corner, kept the one appliance that works when nothing else will. Number 5. The fireplace with a crane and bake oven. Before the cook stove, and alongside it in many homes, the hearth was built for survival cooking, not just ambiance. A swinging iron crane held pots over the fire and let the cook swing them in and out without reaching into the flames. Beside the firebox, a small brick bake oven held the heat from a burned-down fire long enough to bake a week's worth of bread. Some hearths had a warming oven or a warming shelf to keep food hot. This was a complete kitchen powered by wood and fire, capable of feeding a family through any winter without a watt of electricity. Every part had a purpose worked out over centuries. The modern fireplace, if a house even has one, is decorative, sealed behind glass, built to look at, and nothing more. We kept the fire and threw away every clever thing our ancestors built around it to actually stay alive. Number 4. Thick masonry walls. The old brick and stone houses were built with walls a foot or two thick, and that mass was a survival feature disguised as construction. Thick masonry absorbs heat slowly during the day and releases it slowly at night, so the inside of the house stays even while the temperature swings wildly outside. In summer, the walls kept the day's heat out for hours. In winter, they held the fire's warmth long after it died down. This is called thermal mass, and it is the same principle behind adobe houses that stay cool in desert heat. A heavy wall was expensive to build, but it moderated the whole climate of the house for as long as the house stood. Modern construction uses thin framed walls stuffed with insulation, lighter and cheaper, but with none of that heat-storing mass. The wall reacts fast to every temperature swing now, and the machine works overtime to hold the line the old walls held on their own. Number 3. The storm cellar. In tornado country, this feature was not a convenience. It was the reason a family lived to see the next morning. The storm cellar, also called a cyclone cellar, was a reinforced underground room, often dug apart from the house with a heavy slanted door where the family took shelter when the sky turned green. When a tornado leveled the house above, the family in the cellar walked out alive. Countless people across the plains owe their lives to that hole in the ground and the door their grandfather built strong. It doubled as cold storage the rest of the year. Modern subdivisions get built on slabs with no basement and no cellar, and families in Tornado Alley are told to shelter in an interior bathroom and hope. Builders skip the cellar to cut cost, and every storm season, the news carries the names of people who had nowhere to go. This one feature is the difference between a scare and a funeral. Number 2, the cold cellar. Below the house, dug into the earth, was a room that stayed cold and dark and steady year-round, and it kept a family fed. The cold cellar, or canning cellar, held the shelves of home canned food, the crocks of pickles and kraut, and the produce that needed cool storage but not freezing. The earth itself did the work, holding a temperature in the low 50s through the blaze of August and the deep freeze of January. A family with a full cold cellar could eat all winter from a summer's labor. No electricity, no store, no dependence on anything but their own hands and the ground. It was food security, built into the foundation. Modern basements are finished into recreation rooms and home theaters, climate-controlled and useless for storage, and the family's entire food reserve now lives in a refrigerator that empties in a week and dies in a blackout. We finished the basement and buried the pantry that used to save us. Number 1, the root cellar. At the very top of this list is the humblest structure of all, and the one that kept more American families alive through more hard winters than anything else ever built into a home. The root cellar was a cool, dark, earth-covered room, sometimes under the house, sometimes dug into a hillside, where a family stored the potatoes, carrots, turnips, onions, apples, and squash that carried them from the last harvest to the first spring planting. Packed in sand or straw, buried in the steady cool of the ground, that food kept for months without a machine, without power, without a single thing that could break. A well-built root cellar meant a family never went hungry between growing seasons, no matter what the weather did or how far the nearest store was. It was survival in its purest form, food and shelter and the earth working together. This is the feature that appears in every account of how our great-grandparents made it through. We traded it for a full supermarket and the comfortable belief that it will always be there. The families who dug root cellars never trusted that belief for a second, and they were the ones who always had something to eat. Here is the challenge. Walk through your own house this week and look for even one of these. A transom above a door, a little hatch in the wall, a cool corner of the basement nobody uses. Then think about what it was built to do and whether you could make it do that again. Because these were not old-fashioned quirks, they were the reasons a family survived the heat, the cold, the storm, and the lean months, all on their own. Drop a comment and tell me which feature your grandparents' house had. I want to know how many of you still remember the milk door.